President Ruto is staring at a big crisis ahead of the annual State of the Nation address, 3 years after taking the reins of power, ranging from a health scheme riddled with billions of debts owed to the defunct NHIF, education system where JSS teachers are yet to be confirmed after the one-year contract expired. But affordable housing units that were lauded as game changers remain unoccupied across the country despite of the colorful launches by the state officials. In this podcast, we look at William Ruto's news by the NIS of his numbers, even as he faces the country to pitch on what he has achieved for the country. Keep it in this podcast because we'll be giving you a blow-by-blow account on that State of the Nation address that is expected tomorrow. In 2023, when there was supposed to be State of the Nation address, MPs told the president that ground ni kubaya, but he responded by saying that it was not the time to be famous. It was not the time to listen to the ground. But 3 years later, things still don't seem to have changed. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this podcast and you've not subscribed, kindly just click the subscription button there and click and watch this podcast, because we do in-depth analysis. And here we give it an angle. We give it the research that is needed to put this piece together. And as we prepare to listen to what the president is going to tell the country, here is a good prep for you to understand what's running in the country. Tuesday, The Star splashed a shouting headline on the front page campaigning for the president, indicating an attempt. And I just want you to look at the two leading stories in this newspaper. If you look at it there is this story at the top here. It is saying, Odinga's former spokesman, why ODM should support Ruto. And at the same time, the headline by the Star, President has an upper hand if he inherits Raila Odinga's entire voting bloc. 2027 epic rate, Ruto numbers against Kalonzo Gachagua. The tone of comparing Ruto numbers against Kalonzo Gachagua, I'm a bit tempted to ask, Kalonzo Gachagua, but is Ruto alone? Now, this writer, we can also tell this writer here, this editor, that whether is Ruto upper hand if he inherits entire Raila's voting bloc, but I think it would be more appropriate to say Ruto's hand if he inherits Raila's divided voting bloc. Is it entire? It is not entire, because that bloc is divided in opinion. There is a silent observation, and this observation is that William Ruto depended on Raila Odinga to marshal the numbers to replace the Mount Kenya bloc after Rigathi Gachagua impeachment. And actually, the confidence of impeaching Rigathi Gachagua came because he was so sure that he had Raila Odinga's support, and with Raila Odinga's support, re-election was actually guaranteed. After dodging several State of the Nation address, the mainstream media roundtables, President Ruto and his handlers have been keen to project an image that William Ruto is cruising to his second term easily. And let's get back to this newspaper and look at these numbers. The Star on Tuesday is normally pro-government because they were actually given tender, and they're the ones that normally have the MyGov for government tenders and job opportunities. A pullout from the Star that exclusively covers the government tenders, jobs, and opportunities. And probably something that was not included in that deal is that the newspaper was supposed to be part, by extension, part of the state machinery, especially when some propaganda is supposed to be sent. This newspaper has been consistent on that. Last week, they were talking about how there is a power sharing deal at the opposition. That was last week on Tuesday. This week, they're talking about these numbers. But curiously, I want us to look at their breakdown so that you look at what they're saying. Especially, I want us to look at this part. President Ruto's bases. Look at the counties they are singling out as Ruto's bases. Uasin Gishu, Nandi, Baringo, Kericho, Elgeyo Marakwet, West Pokot, Turkana, Kisumu, Siaya, Homa Bay, Migori, Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Mandera, Tana River, Wajir, Garissa, Kakamega, Vihiga, Busia, Narok, Samburu, and Bomet. In their view, those 24 counties that have been named, they've taken all Rift Valley counties except Nakuru, and they've taken all the coast counties, they've taken all the Nyanza counties, and all the western counties. If the whole Nyanza team votes for William Ruto, and I want us to start there. I want to show you this so that one of the crises the president is in. If all those Nyanza counties, western counties, and the coast counties, and Rift Valley counties, if all of them vote for president, then William Ruto is expecting 7.2 million. According to what they're saying, the registered voters there is 9.2 million. That is 24 counties. Now look at, only 15 counties have been singled out as opposition counties, but opposition bases. That is Nyandarua, Laikipia, Kiambu, Murang'a, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Embu, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Makueni, Machakos, Kitui, Nyamira, Kisii, and Nakuru. I'm a bit curious. How unpopular is Kindiki that even William Ruto's own deputy, his county is classified as an opposition zone? You know, as an opposition zone. Now look at the areas that are battleground. Nairobi, Kajiado, Isiolo, Marsabit, Taita Taveta, Lamu, Trans Nzoia, and Bungoma. Trans Nzoia and Bungoma, technically with the presence of, and actually, I don't know why Bungoma has not been classified as a Ruto zone, while they have the Speaker Wetangula there. And Nairobi, there were 3 million votes in Nairobi. Those 4 counties merged has a total registered voters of 4.3 million. The other Guinea is 8.4 million. Now, I'm just asking. Someone is expecting Nyanza to vote for Ruto throughout, all of it. Well, okay. Kisumu is a Ruto zone, and Siaya is a Ruto zone. Siaya, where Odinga family comes from, or Odinga family is sharply divided on whether to support Ruto or no. It is supported, that their position is supported by Dennis Onyango's, Raila's pressman, statement on why ODM should support William Ruto. One of the things, and I want to say at this point, William Ruto is staring at, the 6 million Raila Odinga's votes, where will they cast their vote in Raila Odinga's absence? And if someone is thinking that with the exit of Raila, the 6 million vote will transition to President Ruto's basket, I think that is being overambitious in politics. That is not practical. That is not, ideally, that is not possible. This is the likely outcomes that President Ruto is staring at. And that is why things are not turning out very easy. Nyanza is likely to experience a low voter turnout. A low voter turnout. And one of the narratives that is going to contribute to that is tuko kwa serikali narrative. And the second one here is the collapse of the Raila dream. You know, the region turned up to vote in the election cycle despite of those disappointments because there was some promised Canaan land. Now, without that Canaan, without the candidates, that parasitic candidates that always say we are going to vote to support Baba up there, if Raila Odinga had the highest chance to become president in 2017 and 2022, and the turnout still never got to 80%, people will say about state has been suppressing this and that. But if you talk to electoral officials, some of your classmates who are in charge of elections in Luo Nation, they will tell you that those cues were not convincing. By Sasaba, people are still being begged to go out and vote. That's one likely outcome. Number two, the outplaying differences post-Raila by party stalwarts is going to fragment that vote hugely outside Mount Kenya, outside Nyanza. It was only Raila Odinga who was able to mainstream that vote in one line. Mulembe, Kilifi, Mombasa, Tana River. It was only Raila Odinga. With the survival mode activated, everyone will go for what is politically convenient for him. Kalonzo, as the alternative, will clearly eat into this William Ruto's basket. That is why, in this Raila basket, that is why when I'm seeing the star guys classifying Siaya Kisumu as William Ruto, exclusively William Ruto zone, I wonder. And if that region is supposed to be a Ruto zone, then I can tell you, don't expect them to queue in their numbers. Don't expect. Then the third outcome here is this. Regarding the antagonism of Kikuyu Nation, the messaging within the Kikuyu Nation will actually charge Mount Kenya. And while Luo Nation and Raila constituency would experience a low turnout, in the contrary, the others might vote against the president hugely. I have seen an altercation, and I've seen video of Kindiki in Gachagua. You'll understand that when Kindiki is talking, this one Mbere, hata watu wamevalishwa hizo cape za UDA, but they're not moved.
Niambia iko kanisa hapa, sijui ni Catholic, si ndio? Ambaye haikai vizuri, walikuwa hata sijui wameomba wanunuliwe viti. Sasa sio viti peke yake nitanunua. Si tunataka tujenge hii kanisa jameni? So nataka tuanze ujenzi wa hii kanisa. So Sunday nitatuma mbunge wenu Leonard wa Muthende hii Sunday akuja hapa, hata kama ndaka kidogo akifanya shughuli zingine, aletee hii kanisa shilingi milioni 1 tuanze kujenga hii kanisa. Ni fire si fire. Ni fire si fire. Ni noma si noma. Ni wamudhende si wamudhende. Ni leo si leo. Wacha nione kura ya Leonard wamudhende 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 wamudhende. Ni 2 term si 2 term. Ni Ruto si Ruto. Ni Ruto si Ruto. Ni Ruto si Ruto. Ni fire si fire. Ni noma si noma.
Wacha kutisha huyu Kariza hapa. Huyu mtoto ya bere, mtoto kijana hapa, kijana hana maneno. Atuwe Kasongo unatuma ruku na ndege, unatuma Karida na pesa, unatuma Soprano. Wewe Kasongo kama unataka vita ya kisiasa, kuja Bere North hapa, ukutane na Rigiji hapa kwa ground. Pana tuma wafanyikazi. Ya tuma mfanyikazi. Mimi sina shida na wafanyikazi yako. Na siwezi shidana na wafanyikazi. Mtu ya kilo yangu siasa Kenya ni Kasongo. Akuje hapa mbele tuonane. Arumemona nega jeshi keta. Nimoko ya hore Kasongo. Deune ge valima na hinyana Kasongo. Nimuka daithia. Niga na maka daithia ndima na hinyana Kasongo. Mundu uri atuhugitie muno. Katiguo. Reke amenyo na Rigiji ni ari andu hao. Kuri abere. Kanyu muthiri andu akwa. Nimuko na ngira. Nimuko jariria gitio.
I am not seeing them enthusiastic. The president is facing a frustrated youth. And this frustration always play out in public. This is recently when people were out there for some police recruitment.
You think you control mtu ya press?
Mimi na wako kazi. Mimi ndo nanyimwa, kwani mimi ni nani? Watu wangapi ni wafupi kama wako kazi? Mr. Ruto, watu wangapi ni wafupi kama mimi niko kazi hapa? Mimi nafanya kazi kila siku, nimeomba kazi 8 years, nimeenda NOS. Mulininyima kazi nikaenda NOS. Sasa nimeenda NOS tena mnaninyima kazi nyingine. Kwani mimi ndo sifai kwa kazi? Kwani height ya mfupi hizi fanya kazi? Tunaweza fanya kazi better than watu warefu hata. Watu warefu wako na shida zingine. Sisi tunaweza fanya kazi more than that. Kwani mimi si Mkenya ama nini? Mimi si Mkenya kwani? Mimi nahitaji hata mimi kazi. Si ati mnapea watu kazi mnasema watu wa NYS, mnasema wafupi, mnasema miaka imepita na miaka iko bado. Mbona nyinyi mnakaaje? Mr. Ruto, nitafutie kazi kama uko hapo. Kama unanisikia nitafutie kazi. Si lazima niingie polisi. Na hata nianze ingia polisi na nikwe personal guard yako. Si lazima iko, kwani watu wangapi wako na height kama mimi? Kama mnataka kunitoa kazi, mtoe kila mtu mwenye ako kwa hiyo idara na ako mfupi kama mimi. Si mnasema mimi ni mfupi? Mtoe kila mtu mwenye ako kwa idara na ako mfupi kama mimi. Kama si hivyo ndo nitakubali. Hivyo ndo nitakubali, mtoe kila mtu kama mnataka kunitoa mimi. Height inasaidia nini? Kama ni kazi, kwani kazi wanafanya na height ama brain? Kazi watu wanafanya na height ama brain?
Wapi kitambulisho? Wapi mzazi?
Ulienda NYS? Nilienda NYS. Walininyima kazi nilipomaliza form 4. Mimi ni mtoto wa maskini. Walininyima kazi nilipomaliza form 4. Nikaambiwa niende NYS. Nikaenda NYS, nika complete my all nikaenda first stage, nilienda training. Nikamaliza training, nikaenda nation building. Nikamaliza nation building.
So as the president's handlers were burning the midnight oil, crafting a promissory note for the president to give the country, they're running into very difficult challenges. And there are 3 factors, or let me say 4 factors, that is denting the credibility, that is causing a big credibility issue William Ruto is facing. The village folks don't seem, the affordable housing, yes, we have one element of taking people's money, and principal beneficiary is not principal contributor. But there is a question of, is affordable housing a real need in the rural areas?
I see many of Kenyans clapping for these politicians. Politician anakuja na anakuambia anakujengea zile affordable housing. Like in my village Matunda kona mbaya na wameleta hiyo mambo ya housing project. Matunda mali wanajenga pale Kitale, kila mtu akona boma, akona nyumba, haitaji nyumba. When it comes to rent kwa hiyo mtaa wanalipisha 1000. But place wanajenga hiyo that hospital, that affordable housing, kuna hospitali inaitwa Headquarter Mabusi. Ukienda kwa hospitali hakuna daktari wengi. Mostly utapata daktari kidogo sana. Alafu the health facility inakaa ni kama makazi ya wale the colonial people wenye walitucolonize, the British people. Place imechakaa, place inakaa design nyingine. Instead of wajenge that facility ikuwe standard, ikuwe modern, they are building something called affordable housing. Unajengea mtu affordable housing, mama huko Shago hakuna mtoto anaenda shule yenyewe si free. Saizi hakuna free education. Mama kuna msichana kwa high school inafaa lipe pesa. Instead of doing this all, kuweka hii pesa kwa mambo ya affordable housing, mnajengea watu wajinga juu hakuna mama wa Ushago atasomesha mtoto wake, na the current government yenye wanalipisha that school fees yenye niliona juzi wamebadilisha, walikuwa na support mzazi na current amount wamechange. Hakuna mzazi ataweza kusomesha mtoto na that amount. Let me tell you, mnajenga hizo nyumba lakini mnajengea wajinga. Na wajinga watabaki wakiangalia hizo nyumba zitakuja zeeka zikiwa hapo, mmeweka hapo, instead kujengea watu hospitali, kurahisisha kurahisisha mambo ya hospitali.
Is it really need? The other factor is the question of Kenyans working abroad. I think William Ruto would want to tell the country the way Kenyans labor migration, for those agreements of so many Kenyans have gotten jobs abroad. But a latest report by New York Times implicated the president's family.
Judge Ruto is harassing the matatu industry here in Kenya, and then now Mama Rachel and one of her daughters are being accused of benefiting from people suffering in the Gulf. The first family is not supposed to be involved in these businesses that directly negatively impact the Kenyan citizens. But now, according to New York Times, the first lady and one of her daughters, because it says the president's wife and the daughter, are benefiting from people going to Gulf and experiencing the worst working conditions. Now, this government has been accused of doing cheap labor trade. Now people actually know Kenya to be among the top countries providing very cheap labor, and this cheap labor also comes with protection from the government. So the government protects the employers who are now outsiders and live in the Gulf, and they don't care about the employees who are now Kenyans. Now, according to New York Times, there are these agencies that politicians have ventured in. Like kutoka president aseme tutatuma watu 400,000 sijui waende outside country wafanye kazi. Now the politicians started kukua na hizi travel agencies, hizi za kutafutia watu kazi in the Gulf, ukikuja passport sijui visa sijui nini, those ones. Politicians wameventure into them fully. Now the companies are hizi agencies, majority of the shareholders ni Rachel Ruto, now the wife to the president, and the daughter. They have been accused. And then when the government is asked, mbona watu wanakuwa mistreated uko in the Gulf, they say it's because Kenyans don't know anything. They don't know Arabic. They don't know where the kitchen is. At some point, Alfred Mutua alikuwa amesema atakuwa na assimilation house. Na anawaambia, so this is a kitchen. Do you imagine? People are being mistreated in the Gulf because they don't know how to run these appliances. And instead of the government dealing with that, inakuja kusema Wakenya ndio wako incompetent na washamba hawajui kuoperate hizi vitu. Are you even serious? and you want us to elect these people as a second term. Ini one term. Inayo the one term.
On the fact that while Kenyans are being moved out of the country to work, labor protection rights, of course, have not been taken seriously because the president family are beneficiary. I don't know how you want to pitch that to the country while some people believe that's an enterprise. The last aspect is the Ugandan debate on Indian Ocean. I saw someone saying that Museveni has the title deed, and today Mudavadi was struggling to answer that question. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my take. Thank you.